Jordan's army has carried out 7 airdrops delivering 57 tons of aid to Gaza, with support from several international partners. Jordan, alongside the United Arab Emirates, Germany, France and Spain, have airdropped 57 tons of aid into Gaza, including food and infant formula. The operation comes amid warnings of famine and rising child deaths due to restricted access to humanitarian relief. A global hunger monitor recently reported worsening conditions across the territory. Despite international outrage over an offensive that has killed more than 60,000 Palestinians, Israel continues to reject mounting criticism. Meanwhile, 11 trucks carrying vital medical aid have reached a WHO warehouse in Gaza as the enclave's health system nears collapse. A World Health Organization warehouse in Gaza has received 11 trucks loaded with essential medical supplies, according to Logistics Officer Mr. Ihab Hatab. The WHO footage shows forklifts unloading aid amid widespread healthcare devastation. The UN, meanwhile, has condemned Israeli strikes on hospitals, arrests of medics and aid restrictions. As of July, only half of Gaza's hospitals and a third of primary care centers were partially operational.
Times like this and sometimes
Palestinians in Gaza are mourning 44 people killed while trying to access desperately needed humanitarian aid. Crowds gathered at a Shifa hospital in Gaza City after dozens were killed while waiting for aid. At least 23 people died near the Zakim crossing in the north as trucks entered with supplies. Another 11 were killed in Netzarim, central Gaza, under similar conditions. Israeli strikes claim 7 more lives in Gaza City. Hospital officials confirmed that all victims were taken to Shifa, where mourning families continue to arrive. Crowds of Palestinians were seen walking back from the Zakim crossing carrying sacks of flour as hunger-related deaths continue to rise in Gaza. Footage from northern Gaza showed men carrying the wounded near an aid entry point and mourning loved ones at Hamad Hospital. Civilians described desperate scenes with aid retrieved from under bodies. Mounting global outrage over starving children and rising deaths has pushed Israel to ease restrictions, briefly halting fighting and airdropping food. But aid groups say that the steps fall short, warning of a worsening famine. Despite a slight increase in aid trucks, most are not reaching UN warehouses for distribution. Gaza health authorities say that over 60,400 Palestinians have been killed since the start of Israeli attacks, with casualties counting to rise. The health officials in Gaza report that Israeli military operations have now killed more than 60,400 people and injured over 148,700 since the war began. In the past 24 hours alone, 98 Palestinians were killed and 1,079 people wounded amid the ongoing bombardment. The figures reflect the growing humanitarian toll in the enclave as strikes continue across civilian areas. Families of Israeli detainees held by Hamas staged a protest in Tel Aviv, urging a comprehensive deal to end the war and secure the captives' release. Protesters surrounded themselves with barbed wire in a symbolic act reflecting a plight of the detainees. They criticized the Israeli government's failure to free all the captives and raised concerns over the detainees' reported hunger. U.S. Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff has met with families of Israeli detainees in Tel Aviv as truce talks and aid concerns intensify. Steve Witkoff, the U.S. envoy to the Middle East, visited hostages square in Tel Aviv to meet families of Israelis held in Gaza amid public pressure for their release. Earlier, he met Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to push forward Gaza ceasefire efforts and discuss the worsening humanitarian crisis. His visit comes as global criticism mounts over Israel's offensive and restricted aid access, with famine warnings growing louder. U.S. President Donald Trump has praised his envoy Steve Witkoff's visit to Gaza aid facilities amid mounting international criticism. President Trump lauded Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff for what he called a great meeting during his visit to the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation site in Rafah. The visit came as the UN and aid groups criticized the foundation over chaotic aid delivery and worsening famine. Despite deadly incidents reported near the GHF sites, the group denies wrongdoing. Israel, meanwhile, blames Hamas and the UN for aid failures, deflecting responsibility from its blockade.